Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1155 for March 29th, 2026. Coming up in a few minutes.
I remember I ran into our ex-mayor recently, and I think it was 7 years ago. He was kind of pounding his chest and saying, here in Kentucky, we've got as many barrels as people, which was 4 million. Today, we've got over 16 million. So that's a lot of inventory.
Jefferson's Bourbon co-founder, Trey Zoeller, is taking some of the load off of Kentucky's rickhouses. Through a unique partnership with Holland America Cruises, 11 cruise ships will carry a barrel of Jefferson's bourbon on their voyages over the next few months. The whiskey will eventually be bottled and sold on board the ships as a single barrel offering. More with Trey Zoeller later on WhiskyCast In-Depth. I'll also have the What I'm Tasting This Week department, behind the label, and much more. The news is next on this episode of WhiskyCast, whiskey's longest-running and most awarded podcast series.
Hey, it's Gabriel from Dewar's Whiskey. Here's a quick tip. Whenever you're pouring great whiskey, especially something like Dewar's 12-year, don't overthink it. All you need is a few glasses and a couple of people worth sharing it with. The rest takes care of itself. Back in a bit.
Let's get started with the week's news, and we'll begin with the biggest news of the week, if not the year already. Pernod Ricard and Brown-Forman have confirmed that they're in talks to create what both sides are calling a partnership of equals. A merger would bring the owner of Jameson Irish Whiskey and Chivas Regal together with the owners of Jack Daniels. Both sides see synergies between the two companies, but would likely face some regulatory pushback from the UK and European Union especially. The deal would require approval from Brown family members who control a majority of Brown-Forman's voting power and have so far turned down every merger offer that comes their way. Shares of Brown-Forman jumped more than 20% on the news, while Pernod Ricard shares declined. It would be the biggest deal in the whiskey business since Suntory's $16 billion acquisition of Jim Beam in 2014 and create a solid number 2 spirits company to compete with Diageo. The combined companies had $15.6 billion in sales during 2025 compared to Diageo's $19.8 billion. Speaking of Diageo, the drinks giant is getting out of the cricket business. Diageo's United Spirits unit in India has agreed to sell its stake in Royal Challengers Bengaluru for $1.8 billion. United Spirits acquired the team during the reign of Vijay Mallya, who used the team to promote Royal Challenge whiskey in Indian Premier League competition. In other news, the Bardstown Bourbon discrimination lawsuit we reported on several weeks ago is getting uglier. Now one of the former Bardstown Bourbon executives mentioned in that lawsuit has filed his own suit, accusing whistleblower Sylvia Sanders of defamation. In her lawsuit, she raised concerns about the former executive, including sexual harassment allegations and an incident where the executive drove another employee's Jeep through the company's cornfield drunk and was eventually fired. We are not naming the former executive because his name has now been redacted from the lawsuit, but he has denied all of the allegations against him and says he left Bardstown Bourbon on good graces in 2024 to start a consulting business. Bardstown Bourbon has also filed a countersuit against Sanders for breach of contract and disclosing confidential information. No court date has been set for the lawsuits. Suntory Global Spirits has scrapped plans to build a £150 million maturation complex in Scotland. The proposed site in Kilmarnock had already received planning permission from the Scottish government, which overruled objections from local residents. The site would have held more than 500,000 barrels of whiskey. Suntory plans to invest some of that money in its other maturation complexes in Scotland. A Kentucky judge has ordered the foreclosure and sale of property belonging to the former Limestone Farms distillery in Georgetown. The property housed Limestone Farms' bottling operations. The company is also embroiled in another lawsuit over a separate piece of land where its distillery was to be built. It's been reported that there are more than $5 million worth of liens on that property, stemming from construction contractors that were never paid for their work. There's a change in leadership at the American Craft Spirits Association. Longtime CEO Margie Lehrman is retiring after more than a decade on the job and will become CEO Emeritus on May 1st. She's being succeeded by Chief Operating Officer Emily Pennington, who joined the association last year after working on the ACSA's Craft Spirits Data Project reports while at Park Street Consulting. Bet you thought this would be a tariff-free episode. Almost. The European Union and Australia have completed a new free trade agreement that includes 0% tariff free trade in spirits between the two trading partners. And it's time for our latest update on the Uncle Nearest receivership case. When we last heard from the folks in Tennessee, Fawn Weaver's attempt to take Uncle Nearest into Chapter 11 bankruptcy had just been shot down by the courts. Now the court-appointed receiver has asked the judge hearing the receivership case for a gag order on Weaver, along with $75,000 in sanctions. Weaver's bankruptcy case came along with a news release and 6-minute-long social media video declaring that she was back in control of the company. She is not. Receiver Philip Young Jr. said Weaver's public comments caused widespread confusion among employees, creditors, distributors, and potential asset purchasers. Vermont's Whistle Pig Whiskey is playing with fire trademark-wise. The farm distillery plans to release its Declaration Wheat Whiskey in May. That's putting Whistle Pig right in the legal crosshairs of Michter's, which sells its Baumburger's Declaration Bourbon and just announced a new batch of Baumburgers along with its Shanks Whiskey as part of the Legacy series. Michter's declined to comment on legal matters. Jack Daniel's is releasing the newest additions in its Aged series, including batch number 2 of the Jack 14-year-old, batch 4 of the 12-year-old, and batch 5 of the 10-year-old. The bottles have been hard to find in past years, so the distillery is holding an online sweepstakes where winners will have the opportunity to buy a bottle directly from the distillery's White Rabbit Bottle Shop in Lynchburg, Tennessee. The lottery ends April 7th. We have a link for more details in the show notes for this episode at WhiskyCast.com. Other new releases of note this week. Buffalo Trace has unveiled the second release in its experimental Daniel Weller line of wheated bourbons, which explore the way individual wheat varietals affect a whiskey's flavor. The second release is made with spelt wheat as the secondary grain, following last year's release made with emmer wheat. It's a 10-year-old bourbon bottled at 47% ABV and carries a suggested list price of $549.99 a bottle. Lux Row is out with details on master distiller John Rempe's latest edition of Blood Oath Bourbon. Packed 12 includes 9 and 12-year-old rye-forward bourbons in the blend, along with a 7-year-old double-finished bourbon. The first finish was in Montepulciano wine casks, followed by a second finishing period in Tuscan Sangiovese casks. It'll be available starting in June at a recommended retail price of $129.99 a bottle. Glenkinchie is releasing a new distillery-exclusive 30-year-old single malt. It's named A Richness of Swallows in honor of the swallows that return to the Scottish lowlands each year. It went on sale Friday at the distillery for £595 a bottle. Loch Lomond Whiskies has announced a new core range known as the Original Series. It features the existing Triple Oak single malt with 2 new expressions. The Loch Lomond Oloroso Sherry Cask, finished for 6 months in Oloroso Sherry Casks, and the Loch Lomond Peated Rioja Cask, which, as you might guess, is finished for 6 months in Spanish Rioja wine casks. Both are available from the Loch Lomond website now and will be rolling out to retailers over the course of the year. The recommended retail price is £31 a bottle. The Glenallachie has released a cask-strength 1990 35-year-old single malt matured in 4 different types of casks: Virgin Mizunara Oak, PX Sherry, Oloroso Sherry, and Virgin American Oak. It's priced at £1,450 a bottle. Barrel Craft Spirits has released a new 18-year-old whiskey finished in Cabernet Sauvignon. The blend also includes 23 to 25-year-old Canadian whiskeys finished on Sauterne wine barrels. It's available through the Barrel Craft Spirits website and at select retailers for $199.99 a bottle. And Blue Run Spirits has teamed up with baseball's Atlanta Braves just in time for opening day. They're partnering on a commemorative bottling of a high rye Kentucky bourbon. The whiskey will be available at select Georgia retailers for $79.99 a bottle. Finally, Whiskey Magazine handed out its global awards the other night in London. In the World Whiskies Awards, Bowmore 21-year-old Sherry Cask won World's Best Single Malt honors, while Ballantine's 23-year-old was named the World's Best Blended Whiskey. The English distillery's small batch Sherry Hogshead was named World's Best Small Batch Single Malt, and Red Spot took the title of World's Best Pot Still Whiskey. In the Icons of Whiskey Awards, Taiwan's Kavalan won Distiller of the Year honors, while Copenhagen Distillery was named Craft Producer of the Year, and Scotland's Arbeke Distillery won Sustainable Distillery of the Year honors. Michael D'Souza of India's John Distilleries was named Master Blender/Distiller of the Year, while Graham McAloney of McAloney's Island Distillery in British Columbia was named Craft Distiller or Blender of the Year. Finally, the Heartcut won Independent Bottler of the Year honors for the third straight year. The magazine also inducted our good friend Serge Valentin into its Hall of Fame, along with former Nika Whiskey Chief Blender Tadashi Sakuma. You'll find a link for the complete list of winners in the show notes for this episode at WhiskyCast.com. That's also where you can keep up with the latest whiskey news all week long. Let's check the calendar and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. Tickets for National Bourbon Week events in Bardstown, Kentucky have gone on sale. The event runs from June 14th through the 21st. Tickets are still available for Wednesday night's Fuji Whiskey Masterclass with Master Distiller Jota Tanaka at the Whiskey Exchange's Great Portland Street shop in London. The Chattanooga Whiskey Founders Celebration Party is April 9th in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That same night is the Kentucky Bourbon Festival's annual Distillers Dinner in Louisville. The Ultimate Whiskey and Spirits Experience, also known as the Nth, is in Las Vegas from April 22nd through the 24th. Last week, we introduced you to the folks from Moonshine University. They have a barrel aging workshop for pros on the 23rd and 24th, and an executive bourbon steward class on the 27th. The Whiskey Fair is April 25th and 26th in Limburg, Germany, and the Spirit of Speyside Festival runs from April 29th through May 4th in Scotland. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app.
Throughout the years, Dewar's has created some incredible whiskeys, but our new Dewar's 12-year-old, that one's a personal favorite. It's the kind of scotch that earns praise from the pros, but still feels right at home in the middle of a good night with friends. Every pour opens up with notes of vanilla, toffee, baking spice, in a smooth oak finish. It's rich, it's approachable, and it has a way of bringing people together. Whether it's around the table, the fireplace, or just wherever the night happens to take you. Look, the glasses may hold the whiskey, but the whiskey, that's what holds the moment. Please enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025, Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume.
WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey. Jefferson's Ocean Bourbon is known for being partially matured at sea, on board container ships that sail around the globe for months at a time. Now the Pernod Ricard-owned brand is going a step further in a new partnership with Holland America Cruises that will see 11 Holland America ships each carry a barrel of Jefferson's on the ship's bow for 6 to 8 months. After the barrels are bottled, the whiskey from each ship's barrel will be available to passengers on that ship. There was a launch party in San Diego this weekend to celebrate the partnership, and it's where I caught up with Jefferson's co-founder, Trey Zoeller. First of all, tell me what this partnership with Holland America means for Jefferson's.
You know, as I was just telling these guys, it's kind of a blank canvas for us. You know, we've had 37 different voyages with Jefferson's Ocean. 35 of those have all been the same route. And that's kind of going out of Savannah, through the Panama Canal, around Australia, all the way up to the Sea of Japan, back through the Panama Canal, up to Maine, over to North Sea in Europe, back to Maine, back to Savannah, and back to Kentucky. So it's kind of zigzagging the globe, and that's been very consistent for us. But the first voyage, and voyage 24, the first voyage took place, it was 3.5 years floating around the Guadalupe Islands, which are only 1,200 miles southwest of San Diego, here where we sit. The voyage 24 did figure eights throughout the Caribbean islands. This was during COVID. And those two are markedly different than the ones that took the journey that I just explained. Doing a partnership with Holland American, going on their ships to many different routes and areas of the world, it's really 10 different experiments that we're able to perform at once. So it's an unbelievable collaborative experience for us, and an opportunity to try the whiskey on these voyages that are going to see different climates and environments than bourbon's ever hit before.
What does ocean aging do to a whiskey?
Well, I can tell you, the first thing is taste it next to the same whiskey that hasn't gone on the voyage, and you get a distinct difference. There's really three things that go on. One, you've got constant liquid to wood interaction. As that whiskey is going back and forth within the barrel, as it's moving back and forth on a ship, you're touching that wood. So you're getting that wood, not only the flavor from the wood, but that wood also acts as a filter, and it strips some of the astringency of the wood, so it drinks very easily. When we go down through the Panama Canal or we go through the Caribbean, that heat caramelizes the sugars in the wood. We've sent barrels back to Independent Stave Company that has cooperages all over the world, and they've never seen caramelization like that in a barrel. And then the salt air, unfortunately for us, we lose a lot more once we send bourbon out on the ocean day, the angel share, but it shows that it's porous, and the salt air is able to permeate the barrel. So it gives it a briny taste as well. So it's kind of a salted caramel flavor that results in it.
Speaking of the barrels, I remember your first voyage, the barrels kind of fell apart, didn't they?
2 of the 5, they either fell apart or the crew got into them and drinking. It was a combination. And then certainly our Jefferson's Journey barrels that we took from Kentucky and reenacted how to take whiskey from Kentucky and really turn it into bourbon. We popped barrel heads there. We had to replace barrels down in Key West. So, the sea is not kind to them. The salt air is really not kind to them.
Give me your take on the state of the bourbon industry right now, since we're in a bit of a flux period.
We are in a bit of a flux period. It reminds me of 29 years ago when I got into the bourbon industry. You had a huge inventory, and that's what we have specifically in Kentucky, but really all over the country. When I started in 1997, there were only 8 distilleries, and they had oceans of barrels that they were sitting on, because you had close to 30 years of declining sales in the bourbon industry at the time. Here we have some, we're not growing as we did certainly during COVID, but the industry as a whole has produced like the numbers were growing during COVID, which has resulted in really an excess of inventory. And that's in Kentucky. I remember I ran into our ex-mayor recently, and I think it was 7 years ago. He was kind of pounding his chest and saying, here in Kentucky, we've got as many barrels as people, which was 4 million. Today, we've got over 16 million. So that's a lot of inventory.
What about the lagging sales? Are you worried right now?
Yeah, I am concerned for sure. I don't think, there's a number of reasons for it. It's you've got alternatives like cannabis and mushrooms and Ozempic and Gen Z not drinking as much. This industry is certainly cyclical. It has always been very, very much on a big swing one way or the other. But it's also undefeated over time. And think about the thousands of years that people have been drinking alcohol. And I recently saw a study that said 70% of men 21 to 28 years old have never asked a girl out in person. I'm a proponent of getting out there. Let's celebrate alcohol, spirits, as what it is. It's a social lubricant. It's something to enjoy. It's something to celebrate. And I think we need to get that momentum, that wind behind the sails to be out there and to get it across to people. You know what? It's better to be out there and be social. So hopefully the wind will pick back up and things will get going. But yeah, we've definitely got a lull right now. We hit dead seas every once in a while.
How's your distillery coming along?
It's coming, not as fast as I want to, and we're way over budget. But it's every day we're pushing towards the right direction.
When do you think you'll open?
I've said too many times when I think we're going to open, so I'm not putting a date out there as of yet.
I have to ask because of the news of the day with the potential of your ownership in Pernod Ricard consolidating with Brown-Forman. What does that mean for Jefferson's?
Well, unbelievably, Marshall Farr and Lawson Whiting and Alex Ricard never contacted me about this deal or potential deal, so I have no idea. I'm reading what you're reading and don't really know anything else about it. Certainly Brown-Forman brings a lot of expertise to the American whiskey business. Mark, I wish I knew. No idea at this point.
By the way, the barrels will be locked in special cages that allow air to get into the barrels while keeping passengers and crew out. Thanks to Trey Zoeller for joining us this week. And full disclosure, I was in San Diego as a guest of Pernod Ricard, but as always, full editorial control over this segment remains with WhiskyCast. Next week, listen for my interview with noted whiskey collector and Elixir Distillers co-founder Sukhinder Singh. WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey.
Our story begins in the wilds of County Wicklow, the Garden of Ireland, a place where nature moves slowly and meaningfully. Some whiskies blend in. Glendalough Double Barrel stands apart. I'm Rowdy Rooney, head distiller here at Glendalough, and I personally oversee our whiskey making process from start to finish. We do things slowly, and we do them right. We start with a smooth, single-grain Irish whiskey. We age it in flame-charred American oak for soft vanilla and a honeyed depth. Then we finish it in Oloroso casks from a small bodega in Spain. Casks we season and ship ourselves to make sure the wood is still alive with character when it arrives. That kind of care gives Glendalough Double Barrel its rich layers of dried fruit, warm spice, and signature smoothness. This is a whiskey at its own pace, and it's worth every second. This is Glendalough Double Barrel, crafted to stand apart.
We want to welcome a new sponsor to WhiskyCast this week. Lost Lantern Whiskey will be sponsoring our tasting notes each week, and we thank them for their support of WhiskyCast. Let's start off this week's tasting notes with the new Remus Straight Wheat Whiskey from the Master Distillers Experimental Series. This one is finished in 3 different types of port wine casks, tawny, ruby, and white, along with Oloroso sherry. It's bottled at 56.5% ABV. The nose has notes of wheat bread, honey, caramel, milk chocolate, and almond oil. The taste is led by milk chocolate and cinnamon, followed by caramel and black cherry notes. The finish is long and dry with touches of black cherries and chocolate, along with a slight nuttiness. I'm scoring the Remus Straight Wheat Whiskey a 91. Elixir Distillers has released a new Port Escague 110 proof single malt from Islay. It's bottled naturally at 55% ABV, and the nose has a gentle peatiness with touches of heather, gorse, honey, and vanilla. The taste is peaty and peppery with notes of heather, honey, and vanilla underneath, and the finish is long with a nice peatiness. I'm scoring the new Port Escague 110 proof Islay single malt a 92. Finally, let's look at the Elijah Craig 15-year-old single barrel. I received a sample of this one this week. It's bottled at 54% ABV. The nose has touches of caramel, cherries, pipe tobacco, cocoa nibs, honey, and vanilla. The taste is peppery and fruity with black pepper and cinnamon, balanced by red apples, cherries, honey, and vanilla. The finish is long with lingering spices and a touch of cocoa powder. I'm scoring the Elijah Craig 15-year-old single barrel a 93. This week's tasting notes are brought to you by Lost Lantern Whiskey. Lost Lantern seeks out the most distinctive whiskeys from across America, always with a commitment to transparency, so you know where your whiskey comes from and who distilled it. Check out the complete range at LostLanternWhiskey.com. Lost Lantern, bringing you the best of American whiskey and shining a light on the independent spirit. Let's open up the inbox now and see what people are talking about this week in the WhiskyCast community app. Dramamine posted this note in the app over the weekend. After listening to Mark's tasting notes and high rating of Johnnie Walker Black Cask, I tried it. I agree, it is terrific and an incredible value. Thanks, Mark. I would have been too skeptical to try it otherwise. Now it will be a staple on my whiskey shelf. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Whiskey Dev in Malaysia posted this in the app, and it's a bit lengthy. The morning after the World Whiskey Awards anointed Bowmore's 21-year-old Sherry Oak cask as the world's best single malt, a client messaged me, "Can you get stock?" I'm based in Malaysia, so I approached Bowmore's local distributor, only to be told, "Sorry, we only have the traditional bottlings. We have not brought in the newer Sherry Oak matured range." Then I thought, Bowmore has a direct retail presence in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. They have a Bowmore boutique inside the 5-star Sheraton Saigon Hotel. Looked online at another retailer's website and saw that the bottle was going for Vietnam dollars 9 million, approximately $345 US, 265 pounds Great Britain pounds. That would make it about UK retail pricing. Vietnam has relatively low liquor duties and tax. So I asked a friend to head to the Bowmore boutique to pick up 6 bottles. Their response, "The bottle costs Vietnam dollars 12 million. That's US dollars 460, 350 pounds Great Britain. No discounts under any circumstances." Absolutely not going to support profiteering, so I am thinking what single malt I encourage all of my friends and clients to go for instead of the Bowmore 21-year-old Sherry Oak cask. I'm thinking Lagavulin Distiller's Edition, which is listed at 105 British pounds on the Whiskey Exchange. Would welcome everyone's thoughts on whether I have picked an expression that provides a somewhat similar drinking experience. If you think not, I'd really like to know what are your suggestions. Thanks, Dev. I'd go along with the Lagavulin Distiller's Edition as a good alternate choice there. After I posted the news about the Pernod Ricard and Brown-Forman merger talks in the app the other day, C. Don posted this response. Whether it's beer, wine, or spirits, we've seen consolidation throughout the industry. At the distributor level, Republic National Distribution Corporation is now basically non-existent, and there's a new member of the Big Three with Reyes. We've seen smaller brands go out of business or get bought by larger companies, showing it's the same for suppliers, but this is an order of magnitude larger. Craft producers are about to experience an even greater squeeze out of the wholesale market. I'm afraid that might be the case, Don, and there's also a potential for a lot of layoffs as the two companies consolidate their sales and marketing teams. What's your take on the potential merger? Download the free WhiskyCast community app and join the conversation. You can also find us on social media. Look for WhiskyCast on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the science, history, and people who make whiskey unique. Every bottle of whiskey creates a lot of waste material, mostly spent grains and water from the mashing process, that have traditionally been used for generations as cattle feed. Now they may have a new use thanks to a team of University of Kentucky chemistry researchers. They have figured out how to turn spent grains into supercapacitor electrodes for storing energy. Popular Science reports those capacitors are used in everything from consumer electronics to automobile braking systems and utility grids, and the grain-based electrodes are as good or better than anything on the market. Their technique uses a reactor that turns the spent grains into a graphite-like solid called hard carbon, along with adding potassium hydroxide to some of the carbon powder to create activated carbon, then using the resulting product as electrodes. The chemists were actually able to create a hybrid supercapacitor by combining the activated and hard carbon electrodes into a single unit. Hybrids are hard to make, and the stillage-based units actually outperformed existing options by 25%. The chemists are now working to optimize their designs, but the stillage-based electrodes could soon become commercially viable options to what's on the market now. We've included a link to the Popular Science article in the show notes for this episode at WhiskyCast.com if you'd like to find out more. And if there's something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at WhiskyCast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, the whiskey photo of the week, and, of course, a complete archive of our past episodes going all the way back to 2005. We'd love to hear from you. Look for WhiskyCast on Blue Sky, X, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. Our email address, comments@whiskycast.com.
There's something special about opening a bottle of Dewar's 12-year with the people who matter most. It brings out the stories, the laughter, and the kind of moments you don't plan, but never forget. Built on tradition, made for right now, and best when shared. Dewar's 12-year-old.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2026, and comes to you each week from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.